Now tonight for a little while with which to move, but woven in and through, I want to protect some Christian philosophy and our Christian truth. And so I hope that we'll be profited and pleased and satisfied with an evening in which we don't directly take a chapter and have what he wants to give to us. And I felt tonight, since some of our guests are going tomorrow, that we better not wait any longer. We'd better read a little bit to them. Now, some of you enjoy poetry, and some are not open or have any taste or feeling in that way. So if you haven't too keen an ear for it, you will show your sanctification by being quiet and while the rest of them are enjoying it. But I want to read you a little bit something first by way of what I think poetry really is, because we have such a strange idea of it. I'm going to read you a little bit by way of introduction to poetry and its ministry from this book. I published it a number of years ago. I have a lot of material for a second edition, but I'll read a little bit from this book that I put out, and I have a word about poetry so that we won't be mistaken to think that poetry is merely some verses put together and put in a book. Well, that is true, but that's more or less the articulate form of it. Poetry is everywhere. It's all about us. And it's really in your heart and in my heart. And the poems which I give are a kind of stimulant to stir into flame and life the real poetry that's there. And that's what gives you the enjoyment. I often think of beautiful music, let's say chamber music, because this place is small enough that we could have chamber music, not a full-fledged orchestra, but chamber music. And a group of people come in to listen to it. And the artists are all very gifted, and they are able to give us some very fine music, perhaps a concerto, something that we would really enjoy hearing. Well, now, as we sit there listening to that music, every one of us must be conscious that we are all getting exactly a different reaction. One is enjoying it from this approach, and another one from that approach, another one what it stirs in him. Well, what made it? Is it the music? No, it's what you bring to the music. It's what you bring to the music that, after all, is the thing that gives you the joy and the pleasure. But if you have nothing to bring to it, you can sit in the presence of it and just go away unfed and not lightened. It's the same as when the Lord Jesus walked among the people in the days long ago. He was the eternal Word. He was the truth. He was the Son of God. He was God incarnate in flesh. And His message and His Word, they were life. And yet people walked in His presence, and they heard Him talk, and they talked to Him, and they felt the warmth of His nature and the fellowship of His human touch with Him, and yet didn't get anything. I've said before, bear with me, for any revelation of light or truth, or even of appreciation, we have to be geared to it by a conditioning. You have to be conditioned. Every deeper revelation that we seek from God, we have to be conditioned for it. And that's like it is with music or with any of the aesthetic things, the higher or the more artistic realm. You have to be more or less conditioned. But there is a place for that in your heart, and that can be taken along. Now, those who sit before the artist in their musical evening, one person sits there and he just thinks, well, isn't it time for it to be over? And another one sits there fidgeting about something, and the violins, are just putting up some shadow work. You know how the violins can put up that shadow work, ready for there's going to be a wonderful blast of color and light coming, luminous now with the other instruments coming in. But they have to build a background. They have to put a shadow light. And the instruments are all like color, they're all offering. Well, if you don't know that man, those violins go right on incessantly. And somebody says, oh, I wish they'd stop and play a tune. Well, you don't get tunes that way. You don't go to a concerto to hear a tune. If you are, you better stay home. You don't know what it's all about. But sometimes we have to do with people who listen to us. I've had to ask the people not to come sometimes when I'm lecturing because they have no appreciation of what I have, and they only get upset and stumble. I told one dear old man that he'd better not come to the meetings anymore. He'd stay home. I thought it was only right. Because there was no appreciation, he didn't know what on the sun and earth I was trying to do in my teaching in the realm of spirit and spiritual realities. He had nothing to bring to it, and he was there waiting for me to get him blessed or something, I don't know what. And so his reactions were very poor. And he spoke to me at the church, you know. Well, I said, no, I think it would be better if he stayed home. You know, it would be better for him. Stay home, say his prayers, and read a little tract, and get blessed, and go to bed, and go to sleep. It'd be much better for him. Much better. Because he was only getting disturbed, and I wasn't there long enough to lead him in them things. But if they're conditioned, they can receive. And every heart that's conditioned can receive. And God conditions the heart for the reception of His Word, or for His light, or for His truth. So with that music, the one is bored to death, and the other's off in the seventh heaven somewhere. Oh, just entranced. But what is it? It's the one music. They didn't play a different thing for each member. They played one music. It was just one music. There's 40 or 50 different reactions. And that's like it is with verse and with these other things. The field of poetry and to write and create and do that is like a field of music to another. And so don't think that the poetry is just some technical thing written in a book that you read that has form and meter and rhyme. Most of that is jingle. But it's everywhere. Open your heart to it and ask God to open your vision, open your eyes to see it. So I'll read just this page about that I put in here. It's a little word of introduction about it. Poetry does not make its primary appeal to the reason. It has to do with the heart and its emotions. Through scientific deduction and the principles of philosophy, we may storm at the reason forever. Yet if we do not feel the truth, it is never ours. What I told you the other night. Truth has to be personalized. It's not even a mental conception of it. Not mental assent. But when the truth is taken into your heart, and through the power of the Spirit and your assent, it becomes personalized in you, then it's yours, but it isn't otherwise. It's purely a subjective thing up there in the brackets that you look at and we look at and say, amen, hallelujah, I believe it. You might just say, henchman repeats recorn, how many seeds and how many thorns. You might just as well say that. Just exactly. Don't laugh. That's the truth. But if that lovely truth can be taken into the heart and personalized while you're fed and blessed and taken. Above the reason of the head is the feeling of the heart. That's a quotation from Rousseau. Here's one from Pascal that I like. The heart has reasons of its own which the head can never understand. Isn't that a good one? Don't you like that? The heart has reasons of its own that the head can never understand. That's so true. I do not like the thought that poetry is written. Rather, it is seen, felt, and lived. Poetry is everywhere. And best of all, it is within the heart. We have this treasure in earthen vessels. These verses, I trust, may act as a stimulus to breathe into life or rouse into flame the poetry of your own soul, which in turn will measure the amount of joy and pleasure you may find in reading what is found in this book. Some may ask, what poetry shall I read and where shall I find it? The best poetry I know, and that which is pure, unadulterated, and unaffected, is found in two wonderful books. opened by God and placed where all may read and steep their souls in the marvel and beauty of their contents. I speak of the book of the human heart, and second, the book of God's outer door. That's his early primitive revelation. What a pity that these two volumes open before us with pages and pages of illustrations. So few of us are able to trace their beauty or catch the fleeting and mystical messages which they are saying. Do not make the mistake that we are to find poetry in the broad daylight open and strong in the full tide of expression, throbbing through the basic emotions of the heart in an ecstasy or joy or crushing sorrow. There are 1,000 variations of poetry intimated by most commonplace things. The drooping form of a tired mother. I don't see any poetry in that. Well, ask the Lord to open your eyes. If you haven't sense to appreciate all that has caused it, and you sense that a mother, the mother's drooping form. The wind-blown hair of a laughing child, the restless or startled movements of a sleeping babe, the tears on the face of a disappointed boy, the indescribable love light in the eyes of a maiden, the brave walk of a little fellow as he leaves mother for his first day at school, the long look, that of a seer, in the mother's eyes as she watches the last little one trudge manfully away, stoutly holding to the hand of his big sister. That's poetry. That's poetry. All of that poetry. So it is, take it from the realm of just the natural over to the nature, the trees and fields. So it is in nature, not only in the broad, open ways of earth, but we find it everywhere in the rolling sea, restless and unsubdued. The broad, sweeping prairie, the towering mountains, reaching upward, ever upward. The tawny desert, fast, alluring in its magic spell. Nature is lavish in her beauty. She fills the very air with her singing and strews broadcast poems too lovely to be sung. We find them everywhere, in brown leaves huddled in the fence corner like beggars ashamed before men. A corn shock, ragged and torn, leaning against the western sky like a forlorn wigwam. A brush heap, gleaming like crystal after the frost and sleet have worked magic there. The delicate fingers of an elm making lace, too intricate and delicate for any imitation. The sky answering itself in a pool by the roadside. An ash heap where the beauty for ashes has been born from the fires of reduction. The creaking of dry snow underfoot or runner or wheel. Have you ever heard a sound just like it? No, you haven't. How many can appreciate that? How many know the sound of the creek? Have you ever heard it? No, you haven't heard any sounds like that. No. The smell of fresh earth when the farmer turns the sod. Isn't that wonderful? You go out in the field where the sound just gets. It has power to transport you. That's why I like it. The plaintive half-human call of the whippoorwill when twilight spins her dusky curtains of loveliness. The drip, drip, drip of the rain from the eaves when one is snug in bed and the world seems miles away. So, keeping that little thought in mind, I want to read you some things. And then sometimes you'll see something through it. While I'm in this thought of nature providing the material, I want to read you this one. You see, nature is our first primitive revelation of God. All nature is a sacrament which He has spread out before us. It's His handiwork. It's the outward expression of what He is. And that's why Paul said in Romans, the invisible things of God, His Godhead, the power, the Spirit, the invisible realities are conveyed or made known to us through the things which are seen. And that's the only medium which we have, aside from an intimate, personal revelation, but He has chosen it to be so. And so I'm very keen about those things. Those who know me know how I am in nature about that. I walk in His presence as though I were in a sacrament of some kind, and the Spirit who has brought the creation, for by Him and by His Spirit all things are created. When I walk in that presence, I feel that there's something there to minister to me, and so I keep open. And I want to read this one little bit to you. I call it informal ways. As a rule, we restrict the visitations of God or the Spirit to some church or specific meeting or a specific lesson out of the Bible or a specific technical way that we have of trying to get our contact with Him and for Him to come to us. But I find that He can override all of that, and He can come to us in most informal fashion, in ways that we so little dream if we are open to receive His visitation. So I call this informal ways, not the general staid, I want to say static, that most people have for His visitation. He has something more than that. God comes to me in such informal ways. Not always does He wear a priestly robe with trappings of ecclesiastic art. I do not always find Him in a creed so tight in definition and in form. There is no place for His created life. The nicely chosen words which seek to tell the mystery and the wonder of His name distract me, and I lose the one I seek in mazes of sheer rhetoric and words. And the revelation that I have of Him in spirit is so much clearer than the revelation I get in the printed definition. I've had definitions. I had my seminary work and studies of doctrine and theology and the dogmatics. They're so mechanical. They are so horribly so. They're necessary. They're nice. I wouldn't say they weren't. But to have them void of spirit and life. No, it's the Spirit that comes. It's the Spirit that intimates. It's the Spirit that brings the revelation. So it is not always in that. It's there. But it's not confined there, and you can't get God in it either. And people who try to get God into peanuts, they're sadly out of line. You can't do it. How wonderful that He should seek to come, not in worn-out creed and church's lore, nor at an altar fixed by man, nor in the patterns that I make myself. He suddenly appears along the way in subtle breath of apple blossom, say, in shining swords of grass which push their way through unresponsive clods of silent earth. How can I see creation in such mood and not feel God and see Him very near? I wonder at the mystery of life, and as I see a helpless little babe with hands upon the circle of the breast and mouth pressed close for this its very life, more eloquent no sermon e'er could be. God comes and stands close by my very side, and something of this mystery I see. A single leaf, all ripe and falling from a tree, now finds a quiet resting place in earth. My heart is hushed, my spirit bows to God, for lo, I find Him even here, to show in simple form the ministry of death. Sometimes he comes in such delightful moods. I saw him smile in dash of silver wings against an azure sky one day in June. And often when I'm worn and tired in mind, I feel him move like music in the trees, and see him in the shadows of the clouds against the distant hills and o'er the fields. When I view the wonders spread abroad, the rugged heights and painted chasms deep, the crashing waterfalls and deserts calm, it is not these alone that I behold. My God is very present in the scene. And silently in awe and reverence, my soul bows down in worship at his feet. He does not speak in words for outer ears. His presence is too subtle for my eyes. It is with heart I ever feel him near, and trace with inner sense his speaking form. His revelation takes 1,000 ways, articulate and clear to outer sense. But deeper is the vision that I see when unannounced comes to me and meets me in such informal ways. Now, you don't think that's not orthodox, do you? No, that's thoroughly orthodox. But someone might say, are you a pantheist? No, dear. No. The pantheist, you see, has God in everything. Everything is sustained by him, but God transcends all things. He is in nature. It's a reflection of him, his own doing. But he transcends it. So my hope in life is hidden in the God who transcends, that I love to see him all around and feel him very near and let him minister to me so very often through these agencies. Now that's orthodox. I believe it is. I have a good time. He hasn't brought me under conviction that it isn't. And so sometimes I see him in the most prosaic, commonplace things, in the analogies and spiritual lessons that he can give. I was born on a farm, for which I am very grateful. I said to our class the other day, I thoroughly believe this, that there should be a period in the life of children when they are out of doors, if possible on a farm, where they are close to nature. I believe that is the right thing. I thoroughly do. There should be a period in their life that they can look back and say, that's when I began to sense the things of God in that realm. Let them touch the earth and be on the earth and be where there are cows and cattle and pigs and chickens and dogs and brooks and farm life and the wholesome fresh air and trees and rocks, where they don't have to hear Davy Crockett or anything else for a while. And they don't have to have Hopalong Cassidy either for maybe a week at least. Wouldn't it be refreshing to be detached from all that artificial unreality, that stimulus that they have made to provoke what they can't get, and let them get near to nature where she can not only provoke it but also satisfy it? So that's my theory. I'm an old bachelor talking now. You're very tolerant with me. But I think that's due the child. It's a part of his heritage. So I was born on the farm, and I picked up many lessons from it. Oh, that makes me think. I have placed on this little round table under the tree some of my tracts, and you're very welcome to them. I'm giving to you free of charge with much love. So I put them over on the table, and you take them. What made me think, I have one there called Occupy Till I Come. And it's a story taken out of my life as a child on that farm. That I'm the one that's telling about in there. The one whose parents have gone and who waits for him to come up over the hill. And so you take Occupy Till I Come, and that's out of reality. So I used to watch them plow, and I used to watch them harvest. Oh, I've churned many a time. We had cows. I can churn. You know how? Don't think you dash the dasher just up and down. No, you don't. How many know there's a technique in the wiggle of the dasher? I don't mean one of these round hand organ things they got out in the late years. I mean way back in the Middle Ages when I lived, and they had dashers in the churn that went dashing like that. Well, there's a technique in the way you handle them. So I've seen them plow, and I have a little spiritual lesson here about that. I told you only a few days ago that this little period of time of which we are conscious now in this time and space relationship of the here and now, this little period out of eternity in which we have come into our consciousness, and here we are moving and living. It's only a little time for a preparation for the eternal ages. This is our preparation time. This is the time that He plows us and sows the seed. We don't tarry here long enough for all of that to come to its fruition. These are the times of plowing and seed planting and choice making choices which will terminate in ages way on down. Not here, way down. And so we mustn't be frustrated and upset and disappointed if we don't always see the fullness of the thing wrought out. We're making choices every day which will determine the spiritual level upon we will project our living in ages yet to come. We are making that level now. We're making our choices which will determine where we should be graded. So we are being plowed, and He's sowing the seed. And so I have seen that home. Dave was our hired man, and I walked along behind him with my bare feet. I went barefooted in the country club because then we would have our shoes and stockings for fall and winter and would save. You see, we were economical. And so I went barefoot. And it was lovely and cool to walk with bare feet in the furrow after it's plowed. Oh, that old earth, as that old plow would furrow it over that great big furrow like that. And how the things would run that had been hidden from view, with daisies growing over their tops just like that. Anybody see something or don't you? The furrow turned it over, but the daisies were blooming on top. Blue daisies too, lovely ones. But you know, when the plow came in and turned that furrow over, why, the bugs and the grubs and the worms and the things, they just had a terrible time scampering. And we had a flock of chickens, and old Tammy was our pet hen. My sister and I had her, she was a pet hen. We picked her up and played with her like we did a pup or a cat. An old hen, she was one of them. And she would come behind, touch and teach. So I walked in the furrow. That awful plow. How it did plow. Singing plowmen. God's plow struck deep within my heart and plowed long furrows, one by one, through fallow ground so hard and firm, from early morn till set of sun. The plowshare was eternal truth, which tore the hidden roots in me and turned them to the light and the air, till selfhood lay a field set free. I felt Him walk each furrow plowed. I knew He felt the briars sting. The field was His. It was His joy. For lo, I heard the plowman sing. He only plowed that He might sow. There must be seed to scatter wide. Then I felt His presence near. He stood in silence by my side. And so I gave Him all of me, hopes, dreams, and inner throne. All these he scattered far and near, and left me naught to call my own. They fell like seed in furrows deep, and all were buried neath the sod. All that I had went down in death to wake the mighty breath of God. He did not leave me then alone to mourn the loss of earthly things. To be thus stripped gave greater place for life his radiant presence brings. How could I grieve for a heart thus ploughed? I covet now no sweeter thing than wait with him the harvest day. And in the meantime, hear him sing. You like that one? You get it? How many get your teaching? It's all in there. Of course, we smell the earth too, but then that's all right. It belongs with it. Now, I don't know how long to read. I can read all night, so you better holler when you get tired and put up your hand and wave it like that, because I never know when to get out of this. I can read and talk about these things because it's all things of the Lord. Oh, here's the price the poet pays. I call this poet's price. You know you pay a price for everything you have anyway. Of course, salvation is free, salvation is free, we sing that. And it's wonderful. Salvation is free. But how many of you know you pay for everything you get after that? Why, certainly. Salvation is free. But you pay toll for anything you really get that's worthwhile in God. I told you that this morning in discipleship. All Christians are not disciples. For a disciple has to meet the requirements. And when he meets them, he pays his toll. He can come in under the tutoring and the light of the great teacher. And so this is the price that you pay for truth. And in our ignorance, of course, he doesn't blame us. He knows just about how dumb we are anyway. But we see a flash of the truth. It's an indirect reflection usually. The flash of truth radiating in life, in personalities, in situations. And that intrigues us. You say, oh, isn't that wonderful? That's the truth. Praise God, that's the truth. Oh, I want the truth. I want it just as I see it there in that person or this or that situation. I'd like that too. Well, now, dear, you may have it. Truth is free for everybody. There's plenty of it to go all around. There's just plenty of truth. And we have an awful big God, and there's plenty of God too to go around, but you have to meet your conditions. And so when we see the truth in ignorance, we reach out our hand and say, I'll take that too. Like these extravagant prayers which people pray when they don't know much about God or much about who they are. You've heard them. Seen them at the altar sometime praying, the most extravagant things you ever heard of. The poor darling has an NYID and a pussycat. What he's made out of? Nothing the slightest. But I praise and I'll go through with thee, oh Lord. Oh, a lot of terrific. And the next day when the Lord wants him to do the simplest thing, he can't do it. Why is it the simplest thing he can't do it? I've told you the story of a student we had was always praying these extravagant things. He wanted to be a martyr. You know, oh God, give us grace to be a martyr. Give us the grace to be a martyr. And he was on duty like we have here. And every time he was on duty to wash dishes, you had to fight the battle of Armageddon. It was something terrific. Well, he saw his name on that bulletin board that he was to wash dishes. Well, war was declared. Well, what's the sense of him praying about being a martyr? Well, I want to go pull his hand up on that boy. But, of course, that would be very wicked interfering with the Lord's business. It isn't. Common sense. Stop him out of his foolishness. That's true. Of course, I didn't dare to. I think we've done good and saved him a lot of trouble. I want to say, God doesn't make martyrs out of stuff like that. That isn't material for a martyr. If you can't get a victory over that simple dishpan, how under heavens can you get a victory over a thing such as martyrdom? Whew. But that sounds more dramatic and terrific and glorious. Martyr. Hallelujah. What's all that? I don't think any doctrine calls on reality. It has no basis at all. On reality. But the Lord got a hold of him, thanks the Lord. And he came through. He's made quite a worker. But I don't see him in the pulpit today expounding the word. I see him on his knees there saying, might be a martyr. And then the next picture I see him in the kitchen washing dishes. So my memory reverts as it goes back over in there. And that's where I get the blessing. So you see truth, and then when you grab a hold of it, and it comes in, it does all these strange things to us. Things that we never dreamed of. We thought was going to make us, see some lovely things in the Bible. And if I embrace the truth, it'll just transform me. And if I surrender wholly to the Lord, and the Lord comes in, and I get blessed, yes, get blessed, why, it's just going to be, and it isn't at all. It isn't at all. But people don't know that, and this is what happened to me. I wrote this out of my heart. Did I tell you where I wrote it? When the Lord got me still, where I couldn't go, nor come, nor see, nor talk to anyone. And these things were going on in my heart. And I was on a trip, and I usually have a Pullman. And there I sat in this Pullman seat, and I couldn't go to anyone to talk. Here he had me right there, plunked in that seat. Riding. And he was just crashing this thing out through me. And I began to feel this thing moving in me. And I thought, well, I think he's going to give me something out of this experience. I grabbed at some truth, but it didn't work the way I thought it would. And it's done all these disastrous things to me. Maybe he will give me something. So while I sat in the seat in that Pullman that night, I wrote this. I caught a flash of truth one day. How daring ignorance can be. Shut it up within my heart, a flame that danced and sang for me. It scorched hypocrisy and sham, and from earth bondage set me free. Its beauty searched my trembling soul and bared my inner self to me. In spite of pain, I loved the flame which woke within my hungry heart 10,000 songs I cannot sing, too subtle for my broken art. And wretched I, devoid of shame, reach out my bony hand for toll to let the gazing public see the fleeting shadows in my soul. And while they gaze, they call for song. I pipe upon a broken reed, for I must pipe to earn my bread. Mine is a hungry heart to feed. The alms I gather as I pass, the flame consumes both night and day. My heart gets little for its song, but feeds upon the ashes gray. Oh, flash of truth, oh, cleansing flame, thy burning cannot do me ill. Though captive to thy mystic power, I hold thee a captive still. And we get the truth in it. See the truth? We got truth in it. Now read now. Is that 10 or 11? I can't say. 9:30. All right. Well, it's 11:30. Let's have refreshments, Rose. Will you? All right. Oh, mercy. Doesn't that sound like the earth? Oh, I don't care what I have on, it's cold. Well, I don't mean real Christmas ones. I just happened to open this one. How far is Bethlehem? This is a lesson in geography. How far is Bethlehem? This is one of my Christmas ones. I was thinking tonight, I think I've written 33 or 34 Christmas poems. A poem every Christmas for these over 30 years. Every Christmas God gives me a poem relative to the nativity scene, the birth of the Christ. Either the wise men coming, or it's the star that hangs in the heaven, or it's the little manger, or it's the Christ child, or it's the mother, or it's the shepherd. It's some phase of that inexhaustible picture. Inexhaustible. I always think now I've said the last thing about this Christmas, and I'm not going to be bothered writing a poem again this Christmas. And then somebody writes in a few weeks, Follette, have you got your Christmas poem? If you have, send me one. Well, I said, I haven't thought on that. Follette, have you got another one? Now, you've done that for over 30-odd years. And every Christmas season, before the Christmas dawns, my poor old heart gets the Christmas complex. And I think about the lovely Christ child and the stars and the little babe in the manger. And then I get all busted up, and I just think I'll have to say something. And so I write one. So this one here, I just opened to. I have 33, so I'm not going to read them all tonight here. Don't get nervous. This one came to me in connection with the journey of the people going to Bethlehem to see this Christ child. They all want to see him. They all want to find him. Oh, the Christ. Once again the Christmas season finds our hearts in eager quest. Tired of all the world may offer, we would find a deeper rest. Bethlehem, the prophets tell us, is the birthplace of God's Son. If we find him and receive him, then eternal rest is won. We would seek his lowly manger. There our choicest gifts to bring. We would worship in the stable, now the throne room of a king. Must we climb the hills of Judah? Must we cross the desert sand ere we find the holy Christ child, or beside his manger stand? Bethlehem is very near us. The manger is not far. Do not wait angelic singing, nor the guidance of a star. Open wide your heart in giving to the soul whose light is dim. Tend your heart and life for others, giving gladly as to him. Distant journeys are not needed. Bethlehem is everywhere. Do the poor and needy call you? Lo, the Christ is waiting there. Hidden neath dull pain and sorrow, lives are bound by sin and fear. Where the nearest one is calling, Bethlehem is just so near. Like that one? I think that's right. Let's see. Now, Rose, and some of you, you've heard me read some of these. Do you think of any that you think these people might be helped on? I don't know what. We've got just barrel them. Do you like the dandelion? You like the dandelion, all right. California will take a bow. This is in California for a California dandelion. It was when I was teaching down at the old school, and I'd gone up on Monte Vista, and coming back, I had some and as I was moving along, I saw this little yellow dandelion. It was late, I think it was around like November, I think too. And here was this little dandelion sticking up by the edge of the walk, coming out like this with its little yellow heart open, it was singing. And I looked at it, and of course I had the privilege being, I don't know if ab or subnormal, I don't know which I think I'm ab sometimes and sub the other time, but I'm not the stereotyped fashion of most people. So being that, I have a right to do a lot of eccentric things that the others wouldn't dare to do. And that's good. I get by with a lot of things because I'm a little queer big hat band anyway, and so I can get by with stuff. So I can talk to them if I want to, and I often talk to the street, and I often talk to the flowers, and I often talk to things like that. It releases me, and I have a good time. It's nobody's business. So go on, petty a bean. We're having a lovely time. And as I moved along, I walked along, I saw that little, and out of my heart I just said, "Oh, you lazy little thing. What are you doing here in November?" I want to say, "Didn't you know spring is gone?" I looked at it like that and just said, and I went on, and I got down to that cabin. I don't even remember my cabin number. And I was down in my cabin, and I got convicted. Convicted over dandelion? Why don't you get convicted over liquor or something? Oh, well, I don't have time to get convicted over liquor, but I can get convicted over other things. And I thought, well, what in the world did I say that for? That little dandelion. I have no business. I don't know anything about him. And me judging him like that and reducing him. I just felt kind of bad. I should go back. It was quite far. I should have gone to apologize, but I didn't. And so, well, stop your laughing. I really did. This was real. And so, as I was thinking about it, the little dandelion, he stood there so